What's up, everyone? Welcome to Sasha Talks Movies, and welcome to my review of On Swift Horses, which is out in theaters this weekend. This is an adaptation of the novel of the same name by Shannon Poufall, and it's directed by Daniel Minahan, whose previous work has mostly been in television space. He's directed numerous television series and miniseries. Set in the 1950s, the movie stars Daisy Edgar-Jones as Muriel, a woman who moves from her childhood Kansas home to California to start a new life with her husband Lee, played by Poulter, after his return from the Korean War. Their lives are upended when Lee's wayward brother Julius, played by Jacob Elordi, shows up. But with no real long-term plans, Julius soon heads to Las Vegas, where he begins a secret affair with a coworker. Meanwhile, Muriel begins a secret life of her own that takes her on a journey of self-discovery. Before I jump into the review, do me a favor, make sure you subscribe, that way you can keep up with all the videos I post here on the channel.
So you met this one already, huh?
She's been spilling her secrets all afternoon.
I don't mind.
Marry me, Muriel.
San Diego, California.
Plan's a plan.
Hey, but you gotta promise, Julius.
Promise.
On Swift Horses is a romantic drama that had so much potential to be a really great movie. It has a very talented young cast, a beautiful cinematography, and a very interesting premise, but unfortunately ends up being mostly a misfire. I didn't hate this movie, but I did find it incredibly frustrating. Now, the story is set in 1950s America, a time period where a lot of people look back on fondly as being, quote, a simpler time. But for the two characters that this movie follows, it's anything but. These are two characters that are struggling with the fact that they don't fit in with societal norms of the time. These are two characters who are grappling with their own self-identity. So this movie is really about self-discovery, about love, about desires, and figuring that all out. This movie unfolds in two parallel storylines. You have Muriel, a woman who has found herself playing the dutiful housewife role, but she yearns for something more. She's trying to figure out her place in the world, and she's also struggling with her own sexual identity. You then have Julius, a gambler who doesn't really commit to many things, finds himself in Vegas and begins his own passionate affair with a coworker, and he's also exploring his sexual identity. And this movie wants to position these two storylines as showing these characters having a lot in common in terms of their struggles, because they're both outsiders. But the problem is this movie doesn't know how to really balance these two storylines. It ends up giving more weight to Julius's storyline and struggle than Muriel's. And because of how these storylines play out, instead of making these storylines feel connected, they end up feeling very disjointed. And these two characters, Muriel and Julius, are positioned as having this instant connection to each other. And when they first meet, they're drawn to each other. But it's hard to believe their connection beyond the fact that they're just both exploring their sexuality, because the movie will tell you that they have a connection, but it doesn't really show you they have a connection. This movie also doesn't do a very good job of taking advantage of the fact that this movie is set in the 1950s. This was a very, conservative time, and these characters are repressed, but you don't really feel the tension in that regard. You don't really feel the struggle. So many things happen so easily for these characters, it doesn't seem like there's a threat there for them, especially given the time. This movie's beautifully shot, it has some really great cinematography, and the cinematography really does do a great job of capturing these beautiful landscapes of Kansas and California, where they eventually settle down, and even Vegas. This movie has a very talented cast. I think Daisy Edgar-Jones gives a great performance as Muriel, and she really captures someone who is slowly starting to realize her identity, someone who's having a slow realization of self-awareness and what it is she wants and what her desires are. And I think, Daisy Edgar-Jones gives a very subtle, understated performance. Poulter is amazing as Lee, her dutiful husband who is very much committed to the idea of the American dream, but who is kind of unaware of what is happening around him in terms of his wife, and he has this innocence about him. Jacob Elordi, I like Jacob Elordi. I really liked him in Saltburn, but I did find his performance here to be a little flat. In this particular role, it felt like Elordi was given the direction of look great and smolder. And he does that, but it doesn't really add any depth to this character. Diego Calva, who I last saw in Babylon, is great as Henry. He's the love interest of Jacob Elordi's character, Julius. And he gives a lot of emotional depth to his character, I think elevating what little is in the script. And Sasha Calle is good here too. She plays Sandra, Muriel and Lee's neighbor, who Muriel has an attraction to. And she's not given much to do here. They don't have a lot of screen time, and she doesn't, her role is not as big as maybe the trailers and some other things would have suggested, but she does a really good job with what she's given. Now, despite some of the strong performances, for a movie about romance and love, there's a severe lack of chemistry between the leads. Daisy Edgar-Jones, I think, has the most chemistry with Sasha Calle, but they don't really share a lot of screen time, so they're not really able to make the most of that relationship. Jacob Elordi, I don't think has a lot of chemistry with Diego Calva, which is a shame because that relationship between Julius and Henry takes up a good chunk of the movie. Honestly, I think this movie was more interested in style over substance. It prioritizes the visuals, and again, it's a beautiful movie. It's beautifully shot. It's a very pretty picture. And you can see that in every scene. And it reminded me a lot of like the old school romances where, you have these really sweeping visuals that takes you to that time and place. You also have a lot of characters looking longingly at each other, and there's all these like stolen glances and these close-ups. Again, a lot of great visuals. But when it comes to the story is the weakest part, and it's very unfocused. This is also a slow burn of a movie where the plot just sort of meanders. And it's kind of amazing because it feels like there's not a lot happening in this movie for its, 2-hour runtime. And for me, I think the biggest problem with this movie, it comes down to execution. Again, it has all the ingredients to be a really, really great movie, talented cast, it's well made, it's beautifully shot, and the premise is interesting, but unfortunately, it just didn't execute it well. And it's a shame because I think, given the talented cast and given the time period in which this story is set, it could have done so much more to explore these characters and these themes in a way that was compelling and interesting and intriguing, and instead just kind of falls short. So those are my thoughts on Swift Horses. Do you plan on seeing the movie this weekend? Let me know in the comments while you're here. Like and subscribe and stick around for more videos like this.